Hello, hello. Welcome to Self-Healing Saturday.
There he is.
And this is our best friend. His name is Olaf.
He's a very dark chocolate lab. I don't even know if you can see him. He doesn't always show up on camera too well.
But he really likes to sit here with us when we do videos, so we allow it because he's the best. So welcome to Self-Healing Saturday. We do a live video every Saturday around noon Eastern Standard Time in this group. Welcome to those of you who are brand new. We had a lot of new members join this week. To the support group. So just to introduce ourselves, I'm Dr. Melissa Sell, and this is my partner, Dr. Stephen Ravensdag. We are both chiropractors. We worked for years with people changing their lifestyle, changing their health, getting adjusted, changing their nutrition. And in the last several years, we have shifted our focus of our practice, of our work with people, over to mindset. And so a lot of you are coming here with a lot of questions about German New Medicine, because German New Medicine is a completely new and different paradigm, a completely different way of understanding cancer and its presence. Like, why is it in the body to begin with? And so in every video, I'm not going to give a full recap of GNM, because that's what the GNM 101 video is for. It just gives you all of the background that you need to start exploring this new paradigm and this new model. So today the topic that we wanted to talk about is relating resourcefully to your choices. And we also wanted to kind of give a little background on the style and the type of work that we do with people, because coming from the world of being a chiropractor and kind of giving you lifestyle prescriptions of do this, not that, eat this food, here's the shopping list, avoid these foods, do these exercises, do these detox methods, and this is what you need to do for your body to heal. And it was very behavior oriented. And so when you're constantly used to being told by your medical doctor, by your health coach, whatever, these are the things you must do and these are the things you must avoid doing. When people come and start working with us, they want kind of prescription-based, do this, not that, lifestyle advice, or advice in the realm of, Doc, please tell me what to do. And I had, some messages with people this week where they just want to be told what to do. And that is different than how we work. And so we wanted to kind of familiarize you with this new model and with the way we work with people, because it has everything to do with how you are relating to your choices, how you are relating to the things that you choose to do or choose to not do, which is really important when it comes to whether or not you're going to go, if you are dealing with a cancer diagnosis, the traditional route, the medical route, the alternative route, a combination of the two, because how you feel about whatever choice you made in the past, are making currently, or will make in the future, your relationship to those choices matters, is the most important thing. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today, is how to relate to choices resourcefully, how to feel about whatever it is you have chosen to do.
I think one of the things, just to start from the beginning, just to emphasize, because it's something that we take so for granted, and this is something that really occurs across all cultures as far as I can tell, what I would call the behavioral bottom line, or it's as if we all have this filter that we filter everything people say to us in terms of, okay, what's the bottom line in terms of what I need to do physically different? I need to eat this and not eat that. I need to do this exercise. I need to not do that. I need to do this treatment protocol, and that's the essential element. And I think that's this behavioral bottom line. I think that we are programmed to filter information that comes into us through this, okay, what's the logical consequence in terms of behavior? Yeah, they're giving me a big long preamble. You might be listening to me right now, waiting for me to finally get to the point of, okay, what do I have to do physically? What time, how much sleep do I have to get? What treatment am I supposed to do? And I just want to kind of maybe raise your awareness, raise your consciousness of the fact that, I think people have this thing going big time, and I think that we miss a lot of really important information. Well, I think the other thing too is that the tendency is kind of reinforced by the fact that most of the time when someone is speaking to us, in their mind, they think that the really important thing for you to do is to modify your physical behavior based on what I'm telling you, based on what they're saying to you, right? So for the longest time, when we were chiropractors, when we were practicing, when we were working with patients, everything came down to certain bottom line things. You need to come in here, bring your body in here 3 times a week, right? Eat these vegetables, don't eat this sugar more than every so often. It was always behavioral. Every unit of communication, every bit of information that was exchanged had very little to do with the individual's personal experience. It had very little to do with their perception. It had very little to do with anything. And if we were concerned about their mindset, if we were concerned about their beliefs, we were only interested in those things in as much as they had some kind of an influence over what the person ended up doing. And so if I wanted to change someone's beliefs about health, it was because I wanted to change their beliefs in a way that would give rise to a change in behavior, eating more broccoli, right? I had no interest really in what their experience was. I wanted to change what they were doing physically, their observable behavior. And I think this starts really in early childhood. I think that we learn how to assess information based on what someone else wants us to do. Because like, when I was little, I remember this when you talk to your parents, pretty much everything that your parents or parental figures or authority figures when you're growing up, they might give you a big long speech, but at the end of the day, the takeaway message, more than 9 times out of 10, right, is don't speak unless you're spoken to, or don't interrupt, or eat your vegetables, or don't talk back, or don't do this, say this, whatever. And so I think that the first 18, 20, 25 years of our life are systematically kind of programmed to scan what anyone is saying to us in terms of, all right, what do I need to do? What is it that I need to do? And the problem with that is that it kind of leads us, I mean, it's a very kind of implicit kind of a thing. It implies that your internal experience doesn't really matter that much. It implies that how you experience what you're doing, what you think about what you're doing, how you feel about what you're doing, what you believe about the things that you're doing, that those things aren't really that important. And if they are important, they're only important to the degree that they actually influence the things that you do. And I think the thing is beginning to recognize that there are lots of different kinds of doing. I mean, there is the sort of like the physical action taking. Here's our dog. I don't know if he was on when he was here before, but he likes to get in on the videos. What's he got? Something he's chewing on? Oh my gosh. It's all about him.
He's pushing me away.
And I think the thing is learning to pay attention to your internal experience, recognizing that your internal experience has an inherent significance to your health, to your well-being, that it matters how you feel about what you're doing, and it matters independent of what you do. We're not saying that it doesn't matter what treatment program you follow. What we're saying is that there is a universe of clinically significant factors that no one is paying attention to, and it's your beliefs, it's your experience about what you do. And I think the reason, I mean, from the German New Medicine perspective, so I was interested in experience because my whole thing is what it is like to be you, and I'm all about helping people improve what it is like to be them. And so I was off doing all this stuff by myself, and Melissa became interested in German New Medicine independent of that. And essentially, if you want to really, and you can correct me if this is an oversimplification, German New Medicine says essentially that what it is like to be you, and these are my words, my kind of interpretation of it, what it is like to be you has direct and intrinsic and very powerful implications for the health of your physical body, because the experience of what it is like to be you can be thought of as essentially a communication with your physical body, that the nervous system, so your brain, your spinal cord, the organs that give rise to your experience, right? Your experience of living, the feeling sensations that you have, the thoughts that you have, the beliefs that you house inside, that is in one way a signal detection apparatus, right? That is designed to help the organism, you, interact with the reality, the world in which it is living. It's a signal detection apparatus, 1. 2, it is a communication system so that it picks up information from outside about potential threats and then communicates that information to the cells, to the organs, to the tissues of the body. And what that means is that, all right, if there's an experience of what it's like to be me, if I'm experiencing some kind of a trauma, if I'm experiencing some kind of sadness, if I'm experiencing some kind of loss, if I'm experiencing depression, if I'm experiencing anxiety, if I'm experiencing alienation, if I'm experiencing a fear of loss of life, that is what it feels like for the nervous system to be communicating with the body. It's like you're listening in. It's like what it is like to be you is like you listening in on your nervous system, talking to your body. And if what it's like to be you is unpleasant, or if there's been a shock in your past, that feeling of shock, the sensation of trauma, like the experiential essence of whatever that stuff was that was going on, that was a communication. Now imagine, like, okay, so if I'm in this room and I know there's people in another room and I hear like a low level of talking, and then I suddenly hear like shouting, or I hear things breaking, it's like I've got a good idea that there's communication going on over there that is not normal and is potentially not so great. And I think it's a really good example to say, like, if I have experienced emotional trauma, that's almost like overhearing, right? The nervous system communicating to the body, listen, there's a big problem here. There's something you might need to know about here. There's some changes you might need to make in order to get ready to adapt, to survive, to make it through this thing. And so essentially it's, coming back around to this idea that how you see yourself, the world, and other people, how you feel about what's going on, the experience that you have about your reality, independent of what that reality is, the experience that you have of your present health status, any diagnoses that you may have right now or may fear that you have, the experience is in and of itself a tremendously significant and relevant thing. And all of our work here, all of what we do, is finding ways to allow you to respond resourcefully, internally, experientially, perceptually, to respond resourcefully to whatever it is that's going on for you, right? To recognize that there's a world of significance within that no one, for the most part, is paying attention to, because it's not their job to pay attention to it, because the medical doctor's job is not to tell you how to feel as good as you can about the fact that you have what you do and that you're doing what you're doing. Their job is to tell you, listen, standard of care says this particular procedure matches up with the symptoms that match up with the diagnosis that I've given you, and so I'm going to suggest strongly that you move through that. And it's my job to elicit that behavior from you. And we're not really even interested, right? Because it's not even in our scope to tell you what to do or what not to do in that area. For myself, I don't work with patients. I work with people. Sometimes people are patients in a relationship with certain people, but I'm talking to the whole person. I'm talking to the whole person about their perception, about their experience, about their beliefs. I'm talking about how they can relate resourcefully to what's going on in their life. There are things in your life that you can change, and we can assist you in doing that. There are some people choose to change what they're doing in the course of action and dealing with their illness or whatever. Regardless of that, though, those are choices that each individual really has to make. We show you how to create like a maximally resourceful perception and experience. We show you how to have the skills to monitor what your experience is and to really optimize the communication that your nervous system is communicating to your body. This is moving you out of these conflicts. This is, moving towards these resolutions. This is teaching you really to start experiencing and thereby start communicating with your whole self, your whole body, in a way that's maximally conducive to the health and the healing that you really want to be creating. And as a byproduct, what it is like to be you improves, which is not a bad deal.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing, like when you just think about the way the system is set up, and all the fear that is embedded even in just the word cancer, and everything regarding cancer diagnosis, finding out about it, testing, mysterious scans or things that came back questionable. Every layer of the process and the experience of cancer in our modern world is everything about it. Every layer of it has fear. It has fear. It has, just the word, and like it's what comes up for you when you think about the word cancer. Probably flashing before your mind's eye are images of people who have passed away due to cancer, people under treatment that's extremely severe, just all the scary stuff that comes up when you hear the word cancer. When you learn German New Medicine, what you begin to do is start to reprogram your relationship to cancer. So you realize that here you are, a person having an experience, and cancer is merely a response of your body. And so you start to relate to it in a different way. You start to think about it in a different way. And this different way allows you to be at ease when you really get it, when you really understand the whole German New Medicine model, when you really get the 5 biological laws, when you kind of go into the fact that your body is trying to help you. So there are some beliefs that are useful to adopt, and we a lot of people, it's hard for them to even believe it at the beginning. It's so different than what we've ever been told. People think of mindset as an afterthought. See, I post in a lot of the cancer support groups, and people are like, yeah, mindset's important too, but you have to do this, you have to not do this.
Some behavior, always, right?
Yeah, it's always the mindset is an afterthought. It's an afterthought. It's that the things that you're doing are bad. You need to stop doing the bad things and start doing the good things so you can get the good result of getting rid of your disease. And German New Medicine, it truly does. It like completely changes the story. It changes the story completely so that, yeah, there are good things you can do. And really, your beliefs about those things is the most important factor in how well you and how good your results end up being from doing that treatment is how much do you believe in it? Do you believe that in order to do the good thing, it's got to be really hard, it's got to be really difficult? Because your perception of doing a raw vegan diet, because you think, and I know this is hard, but I'm doing it, and this is what I need to do to heal. If that person truly believes that this method is going to help them heal, it will. But
there's something so significant just right there, because and just to kind of illustrate this, and again, it's not even that the thing that you do, because I think everything matters, right? It's not that the thing that you do or don't do doesn't matter, but do you know, like when you are, and very often for people, and so this is I think something that you experience in kind of working with people and consulting with them, very often the most arduous kind of point in the healing process, in the diagnosis process, in this whole thing is before a person has decided what course of action they're going to take, right? They don't know if they're going to go the natural route, if so, which one. They don't know if they're going to go with the conventional stuff. There's this uncertainty. There's this on the fenceness. There's this open loop sensation where the person hasn't chosen, and they feel like, oh my God, I know I haven't chosen, I know I haven't committed yet, and I feel like the one that my life literally, in some cases, and certainly the quality of my life depends upon choosing the right thing. And this is this example like when we're children. Ultimately, it comes down to a behavioral outcome. If you do certain things, your parents are pleased, everything's okay. Now we're in this health situation where it's if I do a certain thing, I get better. If I don't, I don't. And so just watch this. If you're in this situation, or even if it doesn't have to be a health situation, if you're not there, when you're uncertain about something, there is this tension within you. There is this kind of holding back of internal resources. There is this kind of like, I'm in the waiting mode. I'm in sort of like purgatory. I'm in the waiting room of action, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And as soon as you choose a course of action, if you really choose it, because some people kind of do it, but they kind of dither and they kind of wobble and they kind of keep going back and questioning whether they've done the right thing. But when you really kind of take the plunge into something and you're like, all right, listen, I'm pulling the trigger here. This is the direction that I'm going. I know that this is what I have to do. I know this is what's right for me. I'm not going to worry about doing anything else. Do you know the feeling of relief that comes when you do that? Do you know that sensation of kind of like things, I call it kerplunking, things kind of come into place. It's like things are up in the air, you don't know how they're going to fall, then boom, you make the decision. And before you know whether or not what you've chosen to do is being shown to help you, you feel a sensation of resolution. You feel a sensation of relief. Something inside says, okay, now it's time to go all in with that. And I think that really is kind of like that, creating that inward alignment, is that there were things that were sort of being held back before. And for a lot of people, when they commit to a certain course of action, they get that sensation. And really, all that I would say is that, and it's a small statement, but I think it has huge implications, is that feeling means something. That feeling means that resources within you have been mobilized in a way that they were not mobilized before. That there is a sensation of all is well. That there is a sensation that at the very least, this is my best bet. And therefore, I can sort of go, oh, all right, well, there's nothing to worry about doing wrong now because I've committed to this thing. And that's a communication to your body. If it feels good, right, to reach that point, it feels like just a relief to that. That is kind of a communication to the body that says, listen, everything's okay. Everything's okay. The body begins to respond to that. And I think that what you were getting at is that whether or not what you're, finding the relief and committing to do is a conventional thing, or whether it's, what you say, raw vegan or whatever, that there is an inherent and an independent benefit that comes with the sensation of having said, okay, I can stop worrying about making the wrong choice now. And that exists independent of what the course of action that you choose happens to be. Now, it's interesting to look at the different perspectives there. There's a person who chooses to go conventional, and they feel that relief because they go all in that direction. There's a person who chooses to go conventional, but they don't feel that relief because they're still thinking, I really think that alternative therapy, I think there's something to that. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Man, I'm feeling so sick. I'm feeling like I'm poisoning my body. I don't know if this is right. Okay, those people, there's two different factors at play there. There is the behavior that they're choosing, both conventional in this case, And then there's the internal experience, which is different. And all that we're saying is that that internal experience is an independent and a hugely significant element in the healing process. On the other hand, we've got the person who chooses the alternative treatment. Let's say it's raw vegan. I don't know, just as an example. There's the person who goes raw vegan. They're all in. They're convinced this is the thing. And we're not talking about how they tell other people that they feel about it or how convinced they pretend to be. We're talking about the degree to which internally they reach a place of saying, yeah, everything's good. I'm ready to get well now. I'm ready to be better now. I'm not bothered by a sort of nagging sensation or worry that something might be going wrong. I'm not still bothered by the thing that set this whole thing off in the first place, the emotional trauma or the whatever. There's that person who goes kind of all into it and they feel good. And then there's a person who goes that way and they're kind of saying, but my whole family's saying I should have gone conventional. I just don't know about this and I feel conflicted and I feel so guilty about the role. And that those two experiences are really significant elements in the healing process. I really believe that medicine doesn't really talk much about this because it's not easy to quantify. It's not easy to measure. Only you know how you're feeling. And in some cases, I mean, when I'm working with people, a lot of times people don't know how they're feeling because they're not allowed to or they're not supposed to, or they can only be so aware of their experience or things that have been so painful that they have to pretend like they don't know it's there. That stuff is still there and it's still operating as a communication. And so I think that just, beginning to think about that. So, if you've never heard this before, but if it's kind of making sense to you, it's like, oh man, all that stuff's important. Our whole lives consist of communication with other people that imply that stuff doesn't really matter that much. Nobody talks about that stuff because nobody knows what's going on with you except for you. And in some cases you don't even know because you don't think about it, because you don't have anyone to talk to about it, because no one else knows how to talk about it because they're ignoring it too. And just recognizing the fact that there's like a world of significance within you, and that it's everything. It really is everything. And it's funny, you said too, like the experience only matters in as much as it influences behavior, but that can't be true because consider this, everything that we do in life is designed to improve our experience. We don't have experiences to elicit certain behaviors. Everything we do because we think it's going to improve what it's like to be you. You know what I mean? Everything I do to improve what it's like to be me. And when you just recognize that, what happens is that you start giving a mind towards optimizing your experience. Now, the interesting thing here is, okay, so from the German New Medicine perspective, all of these illnesses, you posted a good quote, what was it about what medicine calls illnesses are actually these biological programs. Mm-hmm. We've got the instance that set off the program in the first place, the initial trauma that gave rise to the conflict. So we got to think about that. We got to respond resourcefully to that. Then, if you have some kind of a diagnosis, if you're afraid of it, or if you're just fearful of the idea of becoming sick, that's a second issue that we've also got to learn to respond resourcefully to. Because the conflict that arises as a result of the diagnosis that occurs as a result of the initial conflict can itself also be a conflict that set things off. And so what you want to do is just develop this ability to respond resourcefully to what is in ways that improve what it's like to be you. And really, and sorry I'm kind of monopolizing it, but really one of those things is becoming very audacious in totally kind of going against the grain, being willing to sort of buck the trend, being willing to really do something that's radically different in terms of experience than everyone around you. Because if you do have some diagnosis, you are literally surrounded by people who are grim, they are afraid, they are managing expectations, they're doing all these things that make a lot of sense given what's going on, but that absolutely are not resourceful. And there's this thing where you get this commitment to what it's like to be you. This commitment to the quality of your experience becomes the most important thing in the world, and you become unwilling to take your cues about how to perceive and how to believe and how to feel from other people. And there's this tremendous ownership that comes with that, and there's also tremendous power that comes with that, because you can look sort of a grim diagnosis in the face and you can say, all right, I don't know how I can respond to this in a way that's anything less than complete fear, but I'm going to build some way of thinking about this. I know there's some sequence of perception, of believing, of thinking, of relating to this that will allow me to really respond resourcefully to it emotionally, to find a way of feeling about this that's better than the way that I'm feeling right now. And when you start thinking about it in those terms, really your imagination starts going, your mind starts going. And again, what your mind is doing matters a whole lot in terms of what your body's doing, because your mind really is a manifestation of your body. Yeah,
and the whole notion of I'm going to do German New Medicine. So a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to do Gerson therapy. I'm going to do the Budwig protocol. I'm going to do some German New Medicine. And the thing is that you're always doing German New Medicine in the sense that you're always having an emotional experience about whatever it is that you're doing. And so it's not something that you put off and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this at this date. Like I've got this list of like the alternative therapies and all the things I'm going to do. And like you've got German New Medicine on that list. And that's one of the things to realize is it's not something that you do. It's something you're always doing because you're always having an experience about the different therapies, the different things that you're choosing to do. So it's not something that when I get to this one, I'll check this one off. To realize that you're always actively doing it. You're always actively having an experience about your, how your body is doing, about that original diagnosis, about the conflicts that you're having in response to the diagnoses. And so to realize that it's always actively going on every moment that you're having a thought. And that's why what we do as far as helping people is getting these thoughts under more conscious control, because so much of what we are thinking is happening outside of our awareness. They're just automatic thoughts, things that, we let our minds run away with us. And so we take your thoughts, your emotional experience of everything, and give you different tools and methods to relating to everything that you're doing in a way that makes you feel strong, secure, safe, okay, happy, healthy, confident. All of those words, those are the things, those are the states, those are the emotional postures that we have to get into as soon as possible, because that is going to, you need to be communicating with these deep levels of your subconscious mind, with your ancient brain, because they're rudimentary. They respond to anything that seems like a threat. Anything that seems like a threat, your body is going to have a response to it. When you even get a little nervous, if you're driving down the road and you think there's a police car and you are going a little fast, what happens immediately? Your palms get sweaty, your heart rate goes up, and you kind of get freaked out. And it's just nothing. It's just a stalled out car. So the power that your mind has, remember, that is operating all of the time. When you are having an emotional experience, you are communicating. And so to realize that this is something that's going on every moment of every day, that you are having conscious thought, and so that it's not something that you do, it's something that you're doing. And so how am I going to relate maximally resourcefully to everything that's going on in my life in this moment? And so that's really the work, is to, how am I thinking about the things that I'm doing? How am I responding to it? Because I thought this is a really, just an interesting notion, is if you think that there is a therapy, a treatment. I saw someone asked a question about like, oh, I don't have much money, but I have cancer and I need to heal. What do I buy? What do I spend my money on for groceries in order to heal this? So if you believe that there's a certain food that exists that you're not going to be able to afford to pay for, but you believe that that's the food that's going to heal you, how is that going to affect you? If you believe that there's a treatment in Mexico that you could go get, but you can't afford, you're not in a position to go get that treatment, how is that going to affect you?
What are you saying in that moment? I mean, a lot of people, what you're saying in your mind is, that's the reason I'm not going to get well. I can't get that. That's the reason I'm not going to get well. My partner isn't supportive, and that's the reason I'm not going to get well. And there's a presupposition embedded in there, which is, I'm not going to get well, or I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it through this. And just you get to recognize those things. I mean, because it really is so powerful. Now, that doesn't mean that you've got to shut yourself off from, resource assessment. It's a wonderful world that we live in, where we can scan and choose from all these different courses of action to take. You just want to be it's like social media. I mean, the Facebook is wonderful. It's allowing us to do this right now. I could, though, be wasting my time on Facebook in a way that wouldn't serve me at all. And it's the same way with this stuff. It's like when you're looking for things that might be of assistance to you or help you in your healing process, you don't want to be looking for things, a lack of access to which is your excuse for not being able to get well, or is the reason that you tell yourself that you can't do something that is really important to you and that you want to do, because that's just not fair to yourself. And it's that same, you're kind of like on the fence, and you can feel when you decide, that's the thing, see, that's the thing. And that's a pattern that exists in human psychology, independent of health. If you are in a challenging health situation, I'll tell you that it's 100% understandable why you would do a lot of unresourceful things, and it's exactly the time when you cannot afford to do those things. And so it's not like we're saying, I mean, I certainly don't mean to suggest, listen, you shouldn't do this, what's wrong with you? It's totally understandable that you do those things. One of the things I've discovered, though, in working with people is that very often the things that are the most justifiable or the things that we can least afford to do in those moments. You cannot afford to say that because of this I'm not going to make it. You say, man, okay, I think I'd like to have that thing, but what do I have access to right now? So what you have access to in all situations happens is an ability to respond to the fact of inaccessibility or uncertainty in a way that creates a maximally resourceful experience. What does it mean that you can't get access to this thing? Does it, you know what I'm saying? Does that seal the deal? Is that the end of the discussion? If you tell yourself that, if you believe that, that's significant. That's a part of your creative process. That's a part of the communication that you're sending to your body. And it's just like, it's happening so much, it's hard to pay attention to this stuff, but it is shocking when we become aware of the things that we say to ourselves, the things that we persuade ourselves to think. And if it seems kind of out there to you that like what you think about influences your body in this kind of direct way, I understand that. I felt that way too in the beginning, but start thinking about the fact that like, where is your internal dialogue coming from? Where is your consciousness coming from? Where is what it's like to be you coming from? And the answer to that, usually from a materialistic view, is it's coming from your body. It's coming from your nervous system. And so if your nervous system is giving rise to this capacity for self-talk, this capacity for meaning making, meaning assignment, this capacity for perception, does it seem that far out there that all of those things and what goes on in the dialogue, in the perception, in the beliefs, would feed back into and have some influence upon the body? It really is. It actually seems kind of crazy to think that it wouldn't when you really think about it in that way. And I think it's just recognizing that it's like, all right, given this, what do I want? Okay, given this, what do I want in this situation? We have this tendency, and this is something that I've noticed in working with people in like non-health related issues, to think that we can think things off the record. You know, so if I think a negative thought, right, and I become aware of that, and I say to myself, damn it, I didn't mean to think that thought. Well, that's a thought too. You see what I'm saying? That's another thought in the stream. And we have this sensation that we can say things to ourselves in trying to assess reality that won't influence the reality of what's going on inside our physical body, inside our physical world, in terms of how we feel and how we perceive. And it's just kind of recognizing everything that you think and say and believe to yourself and feel to yourself is on the record, so to speak. Everything has an influence. And now, I mean, you could respond resourcefully and unresourcefully to that. Responding unresourcefully, that would say, oh my God, all those negative thoughts that I thought, they're going to kill me. Well, that's another negative thought. Versus, oh my goodness, all I've got to do in any given moment in time is find a way to respond resourcefully to everything that's going on, to look at everything in my life. Look at my diagnosis, look at my family, look at what's good, look at the financial situation, look at the things that I'm happy about, look at the things that are some way they should not be, look at the fact that, you know, it's harder than it ought to be for me to get to what I think I need, and say, okay, given all of that, given it all, what do I want? Because that's the reality that we're working with. And that's something that we all have in common, whether they have a health challenge or not, is that we're all faced with a reality that is somehow other than we would like for it to be. Some people's, it's much more extreme than others, but at the end of the day, the take-home message, at the end of the day, the thing that is our job to do is the same, which is to look at it all and say, okay, given this, what do I want? To respond resourcefully to what is. Give yourself the chance to kind of really marshal, really access, really tap into, really leverage all of your internal resources. And the way that you do that is by looking at it all and saying, all right, what are we working with here? Okay, given this, what do we want to do? Over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Over and over and over again, and refusing the invitations that life gives you. Refusing, I mean, you go to the doctor and the doctor says, excuse me, you've got this and it's spread to here and it's going to be this long before this happens. I mean, that is like the most compelling invitation in the world to think and feel and believe and perceive really unpleasant things that do not improve what it's like to be you. And it's a huge undertaking. It's a huge process. It's a big project to say, all right, given that I'm working with this stuff, how am I even going to begin to create an experience of what it's like to be me that's going to be one that's going to be consistent with what, you know, German New Medicine says my well-being depends on me creating. And it's, you know, start small. It really is. It's about, listen, be willing to do as much as you can right now. And if you will do as much as you can right now mentally, if you'll believe as much as you can right now mentally, that will shift your ability to believe something better, something more refined, something more optimized in the future. But the ability to do more than you can right now has everything to do with the willingness to do as much as you can in this moment, and to not use the fact that you can't do more as an excuse to not do as much as you can, you know. And it's such a temptation to say, well, if the best I can think is this, the best I can imagine is this, and that's not good, so why even bother? But if you'll just do that, that shifts you. You know what I'm saying? That shifts reality. That shifts the communication to your body, and you just don't know what kind of positive impact that might have until you do it. And so you better do it. And then when you do it again. And you don't know what impact that's going to have, so you better just do it one more time and find out. And that's just a different person. That's a different experience. And that experience constitutes a different communication to the body that we're hoping to heal.
Yeah, it's about this story that you tell yourself about what's going to happen to you. And that's why, people, it's really like, what stories have convinced you the most? And that's where you got to think about all of the people you're surrounded with. So if you're surrounded with people who are really adamant that you go a certain way, it's because they've read, been exposed to, seen a certain number of stories that told them you have to do this in order to heal. You got to think about your doctor. What stories are they believing about your cancer? And then you got to think, what story do I want to believe? And that's what will convince a lot of people to do one treatment over another, is like, how many testimonies do you have of this person that did exactly this stuff and healed? And that's where you've got to remember, it's about the person. It's about the experience of the person who was doing the doing, not necessarily just the doing. And
it reminds me of fairy tales. It reminds me of fairy tales and fables that have morals. Oh, so-and-so did this and a bad thing happened to them. You know what I mean? And that behavioral outcome, Santa Claus, do nice things, and Santa Claus, there's something strange there. Something really
We're just so brainwashed. We're so convinced, we're so conditioned that it has to be something that we do outside of us. And so that's where it's all about the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions of the doer. Not it's a little bit about the doing. There's some percentage of doing, but really it's really how much is that doing feeding back into how you believe about yourself, what you see about yourself. So a really powerful exercise is to write your success story. Write your success story. Write all the things you've done up until this point, because that's part of your personal history. You know what I mean? If you did some kind of treatment and you are regretting it and you're wishing you hadn't, and you're telling yourself, now my body can't heal because I did this or that treatment, now my body is, and if you start reading those stories that says, oh, for every, this thing that you did, your body is this, is going to degrade at this rate, all kinds of terrible things. They're all stories. They're all things that are being told to you that if you believe it, if you buy it, realize that buying of that story, that internalizing of that information and thinking that it applies to you and your situation, that is influencing how you feel, how your body is going to heal. And so write your success story, write exactly everything you've done and how your body healed, and tell yourself that story, because that's the one that's most important. It's what you believe is possible for you. So it's never about the resources. It's never about what you have access to, what you don't have access to. It's always about, how am I going to relate to this situation? How am I going to relate to the things I've done in my past? How am I going to relate to the things I'm doing now? How am I going to relate to the things I do in the future? And so if you can get to that state of feeling secure, calm, safe, okay, confident, at ease about all of these different areas, that is going to signal your subconscious mind, everything's all good. Let's start healing. Let's get the healing show on the road. And that's another thing to be aware of in the process of German New Medicine. We know that there are two phases to all biological special programs, diseases. There is the conflict active phase, where you are actively in a state of stress. This is when you're not sleeping. This is when a weight loss happens. Your body is using all of its resources to adapt to this alarming situation. And then the moment that you resolve the conflict, the moment that you get to that state of ease, that you signal your body that everything is okay. I've resolved, I've forgiven this person, I've released this anger, I have gotten a new perspective that allows me to see things in a different way. When you get to that state of conflict resolution, that signal to your subconscious mind signals the body, we can heal now. And now that tissue that was in adaptive state is now going to go into healing. And so now you have to relate to the healing symptoms, because during healing there is pain, there is swelling, there is tissue restoration. It's a construction zone at that tissue site. And so being prepared for what is to come as far as the healing goes in your relationship to that, because some people start to get pain and they start getting freaked out all over again, because the symptoms of healing are what in modern medicine we have associated with signs of cancer, because that's typically when most people find out that they have a diagnosis of cancer, is when they start having all of these symptoms. And a lot of times those symptoms are the signs that your body is in the healing process, that there is a tissue rebuild restoration going on. And so your relationship to those healing symptoms is extremely important to the epileptoid crisis. And so it's just your awareness of the 5 biological laws, how they're at play in your life, how you're relating to your situation. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today, is how are you going to relate, and how are you going to relate to all of the things that you choose to do, the things you choose to not do. And that's the cool thing about this, is you can do it all on your own. Like, you don't necessarily need someone to help you. It's helpful to have someone to talk to you about the process, to, prepare you mentally, to give you different exercises and tools. And that's what we do in our personal coaching and our online course. Like, my coaching is built around the context of our online course, and our online course is all about you becoming aware of how you're creating your internal experience of reality. What are you telling yourself about these things, and what is that made out of? What is your internal dialogue, the words that you say in your head? Why do you say those things? Why do you see the world in the way that you see it? Why are you the way you are? It's about self-understanding, and that is the ultimate prevention tool for you to have developed the amount of awareness over your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your behavior, so that you see from a bigger picture how you are creating the experience of being jealous. How are you creating the experience of feeling isolated? How are you creating the experience of self-devaluation and loss of self-worth? Because that's made out of something. And so basically what we teach is what this unseen stuff, this stuff that goes on inside your head because you've been having an experience of what it's like to be you since you were a child. Remember the first time you realized that you're like, there's stuff going on in my head and there are these thoughts, and like now I'm thinking about thinking. I remember that vividly from when I was a kid, because it was like this weird existential, like, what is this? And I can't turn it off. And I remember getting really freaked out, but nobody tells you how to manage that stuff, how to think. Is there a better way to think than others? And so we watch how other people seem like they're thinking, and we just kind of cobble together the best we can. But there are better ways to think. And so the way that you find that out is by studying people that have done a really good job thinking, and, books, and, so we have a model that works really well for understanding how you create your experience. And so when you take the course and you get the coaching, you're kind of getting into like the details of the mind, and that proves to be very helpful when it comes to preventing yourself from having conflict shocks, or becoming aware if you have a conflict shock, and how to overcome it, how to resolve it, how to get to that state of peace, ease, confidence, well-being. I'm okay, everything's good, my body can heal. And so that's really what it's about, is getting to that sigh of relief. And so if that comes from external things, and a lot of people, that's the thing, is they rely on someone else to help them through something. Give me some ease. Tell me everything's okay. And we'll feel good for a little while, but we want to give you the keys to the kingdom. We want to give you the ability for yourself to understand why you're having a perception of a person, situation, of yourself, of your body, that is a way that is causing you to be feel uncomfortable, and how to yourself create a state of feeling of ease, of well-being, so that your body can heal.
Well, because there's like this thing where it's like, people, it's almost as if I'm going to go this course of action. I've seen the best physician in the world. That's one of those big things, the best in the world. That's something, and particularly in the U.S., that's something he's talked about. They're seeing so-and-so, he's the best. And it's like everyone, their sensation, their feeling changes when they hear that that's true. I mean, that their feeling of second best versus best physician is tremendous, that experience, and that experience is that communication. And I can imagine that this is a course that's about your experience. In fact, everything we've talked about today is about your experience, not about your illness. And I can imagine that there are some people who, when they're in, particularly like an acute health crisis, they come and they're in this course, and we're talking about how important how you feel is, and how important your meaning assignment is, and how important your communication with other people is, and how important your experience of your illness really is. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I gotta fix this problem here, and then whatever. If I make it through this, I'll improve what it's like to be me. But remember that your experience of what it's like to be you is a communication. It's a relevant communication to your bodily tissues. And this is not some kind of like new age wacky perspective. This is just, let's stop and think about something that we don't ever think about, because the thing that we're thinking about is the thing that does the thinking, which is like the thing behind the eyeballs that nobody pays attention to, because they look down and they see this body and there seems to be something wrong with the body. Let's take it to the doctor. The doctor looks at the body. The doctor says, yeah, it looks like there's something wrong with the body. And no one ever talks about what's going on in the mind unless it's some sort of disease disease of the mind, in which case we'll talk about that. But it's recognizing that your experience of what it's like to be you constitutes, a communication with the rest of your body. And so what this course is all about is a systematic approach to improving the experience of what it's like to be you. It's about organizing your experience, your internal experience of reality. And when you organize stuff like this, you can start to see patterns, you can start to see trends, you can start to see how is it that I did the conflict, how is it that I perceive things, how is it that this event that happened earlier in my life. And again, it seems kind of strange to think that all these things would be related until you think about it, and then you think it's really strange that anyone ever believed that it wasn't related, because if it's going on in the same body, it's related. If it's going on in the same psychic ecology, the same bodily, if it's going on in the same organismic ecology, you know what I'm saying? It is related. And it just seems really naive once you start thinking this way, that anyone ever thought that psychic activity, that sensations, that feelings, that experiences didn't have significant, relevant biological implications, bodily implications for health or for wellness. And I don't mean, being stressed out is bad because over time it might influence your body negatively. I'm talking about direct and literal communications between experience and the body, that what it feels like to be you, again, is a communication from the nervous system as a whole to the rest of the bodily tissue. And when you start thinking about it like that, you start to take a proper interest in the quality of what it's like to be you. And does meaning assignment matter if you're facing a life-threatening illness? Well, it depends. Does meaning assignment have an influence on what it's like to be you? Absolutely. Meaning assignment, your experience of a diagnosis has everything to do with what you decide being diagnosed with this thing means. And when you recognize that, it becomes less and less kind of strange, or less and less kind of out there, to start thinking, man, it's actually really important that I build this system for improving what it's like to be me, because I've never thought of my experience in the way that I'm thinking of it now. But now that I think of it in this way, it seems really important. And actually, now that I think about it, my experience is really important, independent of all of this stuff, because the whole reason I want to get well, the whole reason that I want to go on living, the whole reason that I want to improve all these areas of my life is so that I can continue having this experience of what it's like to be me. And isn't it probably really important that experience be as good as it possibly could be? And oh, hey, by the way, maybe this experience and its quality has everything to do with very kind of physical things that seem like none of my business, like the fact that my body's doing this when I don't want it to, or not doing this when I do want it to, and all this different stuff. And, it's funny, because after you think this way for a while, it starts to seem really silly that we're looking around outside ourselves for special elixirs and all this stuff that are going to correct things that are going on inside our body. And one thing that you talked about a long time, or that kind of was alluded to earlier, was this really kind of combative attitude that we tend to have towards illness. We're going to kill this, and we're going to kick this thing's ass, and this illness we're going to beat into submission and all that. And I understand why, because when you're fearful, being aggressive, and being resolved, and being, having that aggressive, almost violent mentality feels better than being afraid. Almost anything feels better than being afraid. And so people have really latched on to that we're going to kill this cancer, we're going to kick cancer's ass and do all this different stuff. When you take that kind of coercive attitude, and again, I totally understand it, but remember, the most justified, the most understandable things are very often the things that are the least resourceful for us to do. Like the moments in my life where I'm more justified to be angry than I've ever been justified before, those very often are the moments when anger is the least resourceful thing, where it serves me less than it ever has before. And my ability to decline a very compelling and persuasive invitation to be angry very often determines kind of like the quality of my life, the quality of my response to the situation. When you recognize that, so when it comes to like this aggressive, this kind of violent attitude, when you think about these diseases, right, as biological programs that he's letting us know it's time to eat breakfast, biological programs that the body itself is running, what does it mean to take a coercive, violent, sort of aggressive attitude towards those things? Well, it means that you're kind of splitting against yourself. You're turning on yourself. And it's like, well, of course, it's causing me pain. It's threatening my life. It's going to ruin everything that I care about, my relationship to my family, and all this different stuff that I want to do and need to do and have to do and are responsible for doing. But when you start thinking about this as a persuasion, you start thinking, listen, okay, there's a miscommunication. Like, think about your relationship with your spouse or your significant other or your boss or whoever. It's rarely the most resourceful thing in the long run to take a very aggressive, coercive, I'm going to force you to do what I need you to do in any way possible attitude. It almost always is better to say, listen, this other person is doing something that I absolutely cannot fathom. It's causing me pain. They're really hurting me. They're interfering with really important things. And we're talking about, your spouse, but we're talking about your body too. I don't understand what they're doing. If they're doing something that seems harmful to me, does this person want to harm me? Does it want to kill me? Do they want to kill? Probably not. So probably if there's such a sort of a disparity between, I can't understand why this person's doing what they're doing. I can't understand why my body's doing what it's doing. Very likely it's a miscommunication issue. When I'm working with couples all the time, communication issues give rise to really just amazingly divergent patterns of behavior that look irreconcilable. When you find the source of the communication issue, which is to say, what in my personal history, what conflict did I experience? To what is my body responding? To what personal experience is this biological program, this disease process, a response? You know what I'm saying? So there's a communication that's going on there. And I know that in my life very often I've said things to people in ways that I've said things I didn't mean to say in ways that I didn't mean to say it, that elicited responses that I really didn't want, but that really made a lot of sense once I was able to step outside of things and see what I said the way I said it. It kind of made a little bit, I didn't like it, but it made more sense to me why they responded the way that they did. What if you started thinking about your health in that way? Doesn't mean that it's your fault, because everyone's always doing the best they can given the resources that are available to them at the time that they did whatever it was. What it means, though, is that you start looking, you start becoming aware, when you recognize truly that your experience is communication, you start doing everything that you can to make that communication better, improving that experience. And it's just a really useful, different way to think about things. It doesn't mean you have to think about things this way. Keep on doing whatever it is you feel comfortable doing, but just kind of add this in as a way that you can think, not a way that you must think. Do not let this interfere with your sense of well-being. If you felt better before you watched this than you do after watching it, just say, who are those crazy people? I don't have time. I'm not going to open that book right now, because it's possible for there to be really good, really useful information that is not properly timed for you. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you don't feel good and excited and enthusiastic about, incorporating this into your thought strategy for this situation, then it's like official, overt, explicit permission to you to not feel obligated to confirm or deny or dismiss or accept or embrace or whatever. It's all about opportunity. It's all about, we talk about it like it's thought technology. You know what I'm saying? And technology is to increase your optionality, to increase your power of conscious choice, to increase your ability to do things, not to constrain you by saying, and so now you've got to stop doing this, or now you've got to start doing this, or now you must think this way, or now you have to feel bad. By the way, you can't afford to feel bad about anything. And this is one of those things that comes up a lot of the time, is people feel very guilty about their friends and family if they have some kind of an illness, because they're suffering because you're suffering and all this stuff. Really, truly, everyone is 100% responsible for their experience of what it's like to be them, and no person can afford to make themselves responsible or pretend to be responsible for the experience of another person, because when you do that, you neglect your own experience, and the more you neglect your own experience, the more the other person feels bad that your experience is so bad. And so it really is like you can't afford to feel bad about the fact that you're not healthier than you are. If other people are creating experiences of your situation that aren't serving them, that's their thing to improve, because only they can improve it. You got to allow yourself to be exactly where you are, and not feel bad about it, because that's that responding resourcefully to it. No one ever needs you to feel bad. No one ever requires you to feel bad, and you certainly don't require yourself to feel bad to get better, to get well, or anything like that. And so accepting the fact that you are as you are in this moment in time, responding resourcefully to it, really is going to allow you to accomplish everything that you want. And I think that just giving yourself permission to say, listen, I feel maybe compelled to feel guilty because my husband, my family is spending so much time or so much energy, or they're being so inconvenienced by my illness. I feel compelled to do it, but I literally can't afford it. I can't afford it, so I'm not going to do that right now. Maybe when I get well, I'll feel bad about it, but you won't, because when you get well, you'll be so excited and feeling so good about that no one's going to be interested in it. And so just, give yourself permission not to do that. Give yourself permission to say, I'm not going to feel bad about this because I know that feeling bad about this isn't going to help anyone. And that takes some practice to shift that criteria. But keep practicing. Respond resourcefully to the fact that that's not an easy thing to do, and eventually it will become an easy thing for you to do. You'll make sense out of it, and when you start making sense out of it, you'll do it. And when you start doing it, your whole experience, your whole life will change.
Yeah, and the application of this stuff applies to our stuff too, because our course, you do have to pay to enroll in it. And if you find that you're in a state or in a position right now where you can't pay to enroll in it, you say, oh, well, that was the thing. If I only did, that course is going to help me become aware of these things that I'm not aware of, and if I can't do that, Nope. You can feel good now, and you can use the free resources and materials that we have. There's always a way to feel good about your situation. There is always a way. There is a way of thinking about what's going on in a way that is maximally resourceful, that will make you feel maximally good in your situation and empowered to take the next steps and to find everything that you need. I mean, that truly is it. There is this anti-fragility that we want to help you to develop for yourself, where it doesn't matter what happens, you're always stronger, you're always better off. You know, write that story. Think about it. I mean, your story is so powerful. Your healing story, your overcoming cancer, your overcoming, you being in the face of what seems like a dismal, terrible situation. But you made the decision. You chose. I realize that things look bad, but I'm choosing to feel safe, calm, secure, happy, and confident. I'm choosing. Think about that story for someone else in your position later on who reads a story and who's scared and terrified and doesn't know what to do and doesn't have enough resources and feels like their hands are tied and they feel lost and scared and alone, and they read your story and they say, wow, she felt that way, he felt that way, but they chose in that moment to deny current reality and to create an internal state of peace and ease and well-being. I mean, think about that. Write that story. See your story from the perspective of someone else who's trying to read your story to feel better about their situation. What do you want them to think about? In light of all of this information that we gave you today, how do you want to be seen? How do you want to feel? What is your success story going to be? And so your ability to write that, I mean, that's everything. And if you want to work with us as a bonus to really get into understanding the details of how you create your internal experience and becoming a true master of it, send us a message. We will get you hooked up with the course, and it includes coaching and group coaching. So this specifically about specific mental processes and things that we do in our minds, because that's what we love to do. We just really love to help connect people to their internal resources, because this is all about you. It's all about your internal experience. It's all about what it's like to be you and improving that in each and every single moment of every single day. There is no off the record. Every moment you're sending communications to your body. Every moment you are manifesting feelings, and that determines everything about your life, because everything you want it because it's going to make you feel good. And we don't want to put feeling good off into some far-reaching, distant future that if we just do this detox, take these pills, do this cleanse, do this thing, get this treatment, do this thing, then I'll be there. You can eliminate that distance right now in this moment, wherever you're sitting, in your car, in your bedroom, in your office, wherever you are, you can do it right now. It's manifesting those emotions. It's manifesting these thoughts, these internal pictures, these internal stories, these meanings that you can assign to the things you have going on in your life. And so that's our encouragement to you today. Write that story, design, how you want to feel, and you can do it. We know that you can, and we are more than willing to help you. So please send us messages, ask questions. We want to help you in any way we can. So have an awesome, awesome day, and we will see you again soon. Thank you.